Thank you so much for joining us, ma'am, on the show, and a very happy Independence Day to you. Ma'am, it is very significant that we have the Finance Minister here, because one of the biggest takeaways of what the Prime Minister said from the ramparts of the Red Fort is the guarantee that he has given that India will indeed become the third largest global economy in the next 5 years. How are we preparing for that?
Well, I think since last year, Prime Minister has been very clearly saying that the next 25 years are going to be very critical for India. Having very clearly identified 2047, when India would be 100 years from having obtained its independence, India should become a developed economy. The path towards reaching that goal has been very clearly defined. The areas of operation, the way in which we are going to have to execute, and the role of every citizen in that, it'll be with the trust and the faith of the people. And also we have the benefit, which he referred to in his speech today, the benefit of demographic dividend. Our youth are so enterprising. Similarly, we are the mother of democracy. And above all, with these two advantages, we should be able to transparently build a system through which we facilitate this path towards achieving 2047.
But it's very interesting, because one of the things that he had said specifically is the Rakshasa of corruption. That is a two-pronged question that I'm going to be asking you. I'll ask you about the political implications of what he said, but also corruption. What's the roadmap if that is one of the biggest demons that India as a nation today faces? How are we going to ensure that we defeat it?
One, Prime Minister Modi, whether as Chief Minister of Gujarat for the long tenure that he had there, and now the 9-year, now entering into the 10th year of being the Prime Minister, no one can even imagine or dream that an allegation of corruption can be leveled at his door. It's been a corruption-free 9 full years, a complete contrast to what prevailed before 2014. Before 2014, beginning from 2005, let us say, 2004-5. So the stark contrast is that here you have a person who's led the state government for long years, and now as Prime Minister is leading in the last 9 years, has not allowed corruption to get anywhere near the power corridors in Delhi. And therefore, he can speak with confidence about corruption, as opposed to the opposition parties. Each one of them who are now in a ... alliance are known for one or the other major scandals. Not even a couple of months now, the Karnataka government minister is accused of corruption in contracts giving. Not even months. Now, the kind of corruption charges which are coming from other states where opposition, the ... alliance partners are in power, you get to know it. So corruption at Prime Minister's level, at the central government level, or even in the governments which BJP is running, is totally nil.
But
and therefore, he spoke with confidence that the public respected that a transparent system.
But Nirmala ji, the opposition parties have said that the reason why there are so many cases is because the central agencies are being influenced and run by the BJP. That let the charges and convictions come in, because the conviction rates of the central agencies are very low. Let the convictions come in, only then will graft be proven. Otherwise, it's just a witch hunt.
Well, first of all, every one of the cases, particularly if you're referring to the ED, is never the first point of call. ED comes in after some charges are already leveled and the police have taken the prosecution on it. ED comes in only after that. ED can never be the first one to go into somebody and say, I'm charging you with this. because ED goes in for predicate offense. So it's all right for the opposition to say, whoa, this is just being a fishing expedition and trying to attack us. Not at all. And many of the orders with which ED is going into a place is given by the courts. Right. So it's all right for the Congress or any of the opposition parties and some regional parties to project to the public saying ED is an instrument of harassment. Not at all. ED goes in only after some things have already been established. So I think it is important for opposition to first of all come out clean and then say ED was misused. Okay. Rather than say ED is being misused, but I cannot say whether I'm clean or not. If you have the courage, come out and say I'm clean.
We are still waiting for that kind of a vociferous endorsement coming in. But one of the things that the Prime Minister said, and this is very important as well because this concerns directly your ministry, that the whole world has been facing inflation, that India too has faced it, but we will be minimizing the burden of the skyrocketing prices. What's going to be the roadmap ahead? Because that is one thing that affects each and every Indian.
I agree. I fully agree, and I also want to recall what I spoke in the Parliament during my intervention during the no confidence motion debate. Every step that we need to take in terms of perishable goods, whether it is tomatoes or onions or pulses which are in demand in India and we are not able to produce as much as we need. So importing them in time from Mozambique, from Canada, from any other country, from Myanmar, so that we don't have shortages. Similarly, from the FCI godowns to release the grains into the market so that prices can come down. A lot of steps are being taken. I'm not suggesting that that is enough. We need to continue doing. We need to do it even further, even more firmly. And it's also for the state governments to ensure that there are no hoarding of such commodity. That power lies with the state governments. Even they should come about and make sure that these are not being held by bad elements, being hoarded and then released into the market to make just for profiteering purposes. So this is going to have to be a center and states' efforts. It's no good if states just keep pointing out saying, oh, look at the tomato, look at onion prices. After all, they reach the APMCs in the states as well. Nothing stops the state governments from procuring and also distributing within their states. And remember that when Prime Minister Modi, because we didn't want prices to go up, reduced the price of petrol and diesel twice over last year and the year before, there were states which did not reduce. And on the contrary, even a few months ago, you had some states increasing the price of petrol and diesel. None of them seem to have any answers to give about inflation going up. Inflation gets spiked when these kind of steps are taken. And when you can reduce the price, you have not reduced. Some of the states have refused to reduce the price of petrol and diesel.
Do we expect any relief from the centre when it comes to fuel prices? Because again and again, you're absolutely right about that. One of the biggest criticisms, however, coming in from opposition, despite what you have said about the opposition-ruled state, the opposition has said that the bigger chunk of the taxes are coming in from the centre. That's why the onus lies on the centre to first do a rate cut before they shift the onus onto the states. Would you agree?
I'm not shifting the onus to the states without having reduced the price. We've reduced it twice. So it's all very well for them to go on saying big chunk is with them, small chunk is with us, let them do. We've done it, not once, more than once. But they've not done it themselves. So that moral right doesn't remain with them at all. And again, for the money that we get through any cess, the money goes back to the states. The agricultural infrastructure tax or the cess goes to the states. Central government doesn't sit on any APMCs. Agricultural marketing yards are with the states, and I'm sending money to them to build their infrastructure so that farmers of India are better off. So the cess collected goes to the states. The price reduced benefits, hopefully, and I want to continue to tell you that my efforts to get the perishable commodities into the market will continue. But not once have some states reduced the price of petrol and diesel. Let's not forget that.
You mentioned food inflation, and that has been a huge point of inflection here, because after all it has risen to 11.5% from 4.6 that it was in June. What's going to be the roadmap for that? How do we ensure that that comes down, the centre as well as what the states need to do about it?
That's exactly what I said during my Lok Sabha intervention. I spoke about how we are importing tomatoes from Nepal, also procuring from Kolar in Karnataka and from Andhra Pradesh, and redistributing it in various other parts of the country, inclusive of Delhi, for a price which is capped at 70 rupees. Delhi, a lot of people, even media carried the pictures of how people have stood in lines to collect tomatoes. So we are bringing from different areas where the production of tomatoes is into areas where the demand is now.
Let's also talk about Brand India, because that's something that the Prime Minister had spoken about, that the world has now come to trust Brand India at a time when the ratings for China, even US for the first time, they've been downgraded. For India, however, has been upgraded. So what really is expected to power India over the next quarter?
Many things, I would think. The entrepreneurial skills of our youth. Look at the way people are coming up with solutions for India's infrastructure problems, the innovative solutions which are coming through startups, the small and medium enterprises being given the necessary liquidity. They should be coming out as well with products which will help the economy. The exports which are happening, and therefore the exports bring in revenue, at the same time strengthen your linkages with the global value chains. So, and agriculture, again, where we are producing grains and bringing food sufficiency into this country. So food security is being well served by the farmers. So you find that every section is revving to move forward, produce better, manufacture better, service better. India's contribution, the service sector's contribution to our GDP is growing. More than 60% is the contribution now. The service sector is doing immensely well. So these are the ways in which I suppose we would expect to have the recovery and stabilizing of growth in India. But even as the Prime Minister rightly referred, that we don't just import commodities, but we also import inflation in some of the commodities, because prices are higher than what they would be otherwise in the global markets.
Okay. It's important because we are scripting the future of India, that we literally look at the future of India, the children. The new education policy, it came with much fanfare. A lot of the academicians had said this is a much needed, required reform in the education sector. However, now we are seeing that this is being opposed again and again, especially in the opposition ruled state. A short while back, Sitharaman had come out and said that next year onwards, Karnataka is going to scrap the NEP. You've had in Kerala, as you well know, a lot of the chapters which were axed have now been brought back in supplementary textbooks. These kind of oppositions that has been coming in to the NEP, how would you like to respond to that?
The NEP is a product of immense consultation. People from all states, experts, common citizens, and the document was put in public domain. People gave their inputs. The Education Ministry spent a lot of time and incorporated the suggestions which came, and it came out in 2020 as 2022 as a document after so much of consultation had happened. So now suddenly, because when governments change, you get the opposition party and then they want to say, oh no, this is no good. NEP has progressive thinking going into it. Education in mother tongue has been given priority. Flexibility of subject choice is a feature. Children can choose the subjects where they have their aptitude. There's a lot of element of looking at future higher education, for which therefore the skills necessary will have to be acquired. There is an element of bringing skills which are just going to help the student to pursue higher education as much as coming out and wanting to seek an employment somewhere. It is one of the best and well drafted policies of Government of India. In fact, most states have realized that it gives them the flexibility to take education forward the way their students would want it in the states. So just for politicking, and because it's a policy so well drafted and come out because of Prime Minister Modi, and you don't like Prime Minister Modi, you can now suddenly say, no, I don't want the policy either. They had been in government for over 10 years. When the world is changing, when the education scenario is changing, they didn't bring an effective policy. But now, when there is a well-acclaimed policy, they want to show that their hatred for Prime Minister will reflect in the education policy.
But Nirmala ji, here's the catch. They are saying that history is being deliberately distorted. There are mentions of 2002 Gujarat riots which have been removed and now brought back in the Kerala's supplementary textbooks. They are saying that the Mughal history is also being whitewashed. Akbar Amma, all those references have been removed. Several such instances are there. Is history being distorted or is it being corrected?
I'm shocked that this question is being asked. No harm. You're not wrong in asking this question. History of India. You must have heard of Angus Madison, who came up with how India and its wealth till 500 Common Era has shown that India was a very wealthy country, how Indians and their entrepreneurial and trading skills have made India one of those lands which people sought to come here. You heard Fahian and Hyunsang being read out, or you have read it yourself. You heard also Megasthenes the traveler, who said there were no beggars in this country, there were no insecurity for anybody walking in public places. Have you heard our history books say any of this? Have you heard of history books tell that the Chola kings of Tamil Nadu had built wonderful huge ships and went till the Southeast Asian countries, established their kingdoms there without violence, and also propagated very good trading skills? Have you heard that somewhere in the southern border between Kerala and Tamil Nadu, there is a place from where the Dutch were defeated by the Indians? Their naval forces were thrown out. Have you ever heard of any of this? Have you ever heard that the Pandya kings were trading with so many others all over the world? Have you heard of Assami freedom fighter, about whom we are now talking? Have you heard of Rani Gaindulu, who's a lady freedom fighter from Nagaland? I want to ask of you, how many of the Rashtrakuta kings or how many of the Deccan rulers pre-Mughals are in our textbooks? How many of us have heard of the republics which existed in the UP Gangetic belt? Were they in our textbooks? So for these immense omissions,
Right.
and for the vested interest commissions into our history books, who is the answerable person in the Congress regime between 1950 till about 2000? Who were the ones who did not include the famous Indian kings?
I think you've made a very relevant point there. But it's good to see that you have backed it up with facts. I'm a student of history myself. And I come from Assam. So I'm glad that a lot of these regions are now being brought back to prominence. But go ahead, ma'am.
Borphukan, right, is the Assami big leader, freedom fighter who stopped the Mughals from coming into Assam. Do we hear about him?
Yes.
Similarly, do we hear
Absolutely.
from the history books that the famine in Bihar and Bengal were man-made during the British times? Do we hear from our history books that grains were sent off for the Second World War, killing our people here of starvation?
Right.
So who's distorting the history books?
So it's not distorting. Nirmala Sitharaman vociferously defends the NEP, saying that this is correcting the omissions of the past. Thank you so much, Nirmala Sitharaman, the Honourable Finance Minister, for joining us here on Times Now.